Thank you for a very kind introduction, very generous of you. Mr. Shadrock, Mr. Kaul, Mr. Banerjee, Mr. Osama, all the distinguished members of the world of literature and preservation of literature present over here, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, you thanked me, but I owe to thank you. Thank you because on two accounts. A, that you read out some of the lesser parts of the profile, the kind of responsibility that I have been asked to handle nowadays hardly calls for recalling your reading and writing aptitudes. So thanks, you did that. Also reminded me of that. Yes, thanks also for making me a part of a gathering which is closer to heart, closer to passion, closer to aptitude. And I must confess that, of course, you refer to the 8 books written by me and I know thousands of published write-ups, but I must confess that ever since I was handed over these ministerial responsibilities, there's been very little time to read and write, and therefore it's a pleasant, refreshing experience for me, both in terms of being here and also in terms of academically reviving myself. And in a brief interlude that was over here, I was talking to Mr. Kaul and trying to understand and learn how this venture got its way. And he was telling me that he started off way about quarter century ago, a network, library network society, which later on got registered, and now you are holding the first ever conference, the maiden conference, and I have to thank you for that also, to have made me a part of this historic event, which I'm sure you will be remembering for quite some time to come. And that also brings to my mind that if this venture has sustained for the last quarter of a century and it has progressed in a rather healthy way from a society, then getting itself registered, and then finally evolving to a level where it could hold such academic activities, which I'm sure are going to be held on a regular basis, it must have been the commitment and passion of a handful of few, like the gentleman sitting over here. And indeed, it is my considered view that something like literature or anything that goes along with it is sustained essentially by a few of lunatics, and not very highly qualified ones. Incidentally, when I wrote the preface to my very first book that was published, I think, the early 90s, I wrote that it was a quirk of fate that I had got to be recognized as an author of sorts, and one of my books was included in the best seller section in the annual book fair that you hold at Pragati Maidan every year. Because my own qualification in the language which I chose to write, English, never went beyond, I think, class 11. And those days, the present generation is lucky, they have class 12 system, and our days we had that secondary system and this Cambridge system. So, and most of the time afterwards I was doing medical learning. But in a way, that proved to be a blessing in disguise, because my passion and my aptitude led me to read much more than what I would have otherwise read, had I been actually a student of literature or student of journalism. And I remember many years later, I received a call from the English department of a university who wanted me to deliver a series of lectures on Niraj Chaudhary, the famous author of the famous book called Autobiography of an Unknown Indian. Lesser read now, but nevertheless. And when I tried to find out why they had chosen out to summon me for that, I realized that most of the faculty members there were highly trained in Greek literature, French literature, Russian literature, but somebody like Niraj Chaudhary never formed a part of the syllabus which they had read or they were teaching. And so also to an extent others like Tagore and Premchand. And that reminds me incidentally of a famous observation made by Francis Bacon, who said the greatest harm to the cause of literature is done by the teachers of literature. When they lock you up in dark, dingy classrooms and expect you to mug up, cram up what they are teaching, and they sometimes comes in the way of your actual growth of creative writing. And I'm also saying this because I have realized this, and I believe that all of us, or all of you who are engaged in this kind of activity are actually doing a service which is sometimes underrated, but which is more lasting and more eternal, in the sense that when monarchs, kings, emperors, they fall into the oblivion of history and sometimes get reduced only to the footnotes of history books. Even the prime ministers, for that matter, if you ask at random to count the sequential chronology of the names of the prime ministers of India, many of the young boys and girls will begin to falter. And therefore, on such occasions, what lasts longer, what outlives, is a good piece of literature. And books, therefore, are indeed a treasure forever. And even now, when we talk of the modern India or the last 2 centuries, 20th century, 19th century, we immediately speak or start discussing in the reference of somebody like Tagore or Munshi Premchand or Sadat Hasan Manto. The last 2 names which I am naming are of course said to be the signature of the time in which they lived, whether it was Premchand, whether it was Munshi. So you won't go back to, though you had icons of freedom fighters during the same era among their contemporaries, but still the reference goes to them. So there has something more to it than we actually realize. And it is realized by the future generations, and therefore the underrating takes place, because the generation which is living through it doesn't often realize. We tend to bow our heads more to the monarchs and emperors, but we fail to realize that the 2 generations hence will be looking back to our generation with reference, not in reference to the emperor, but in reference to somebody who produced a work which could last longer and which could also actually act as, what shall I say, a signature tune of the times in which it was created. And therefore, it's a great service to do something in the direction of preserving books, good books of all forms, whether it be literature or science. And of course, of late, it's often heard that book reading has given way to some of the more easier means of recreation with the coming in of internet and social media and everything else. But without holding a grudge for that, I still believe that since we are in a stage of evolution, the whole nation actually, we are in a stage of evolution in all spheres of life, in culture, in literature, in our habits of recreation, even in politics, even in our wisdom to vote. And therefore, this is all the fallout of a transitional phase. And maybe it is easier to reach out to the net and look for something than to dig it out in a book. And sometimes you lose the habit of even writing a good application or a good letter. You just remember how to write alphabet U for you and you forget that U spells as Y-O-U. So that's how it takes it all. But I still, without, as I said, without grudging, believe that this is a transition, and it is an essential part of the evolution, because if we don't learn this, we won't be supplementing what is already existing with us. And if we are able to supplement the two aspects, I think that's a great contribution and a great deal of achievement as well, which I believe, as was being pointed out by Mr. Shardak and Ostro in the video lecture that we were listening to Mr. Swaminathan, about how you could actually digitalize all these things. But even if you have this instant methods of preserving literature, I hope the writers and the columnists would not succumb to the temptation of instant writing, which sometimes is okay when you have this fast-moving, mutually competitive electronic channels vying for deadlines and trying to be one up on another, but doesn't actually serve the cause of literature in the long run, sometimes even boomerangs on you. You remember the famous story of Devdas in Sarat Chandra's book. He posted a letter and regretted all his life. And nowadays, you don't even have the time to regret, because he must have walked to a post box to post it in a state of drunkenness, and then woken up in the morning to realize that in my days when we were small, we were always taught that if you write a letter, preserve it, don't post it into the post box. Let it be there for a day or for a few hours. You could have an afterthought. Sometimes it may be written in a fit of an emotion which is not very flattering or very respectable. So if that could happen to somebody like Devdas, what would be the fate of some of our younger peers who could be writing instant SMSs and then regretting for lifetime, and then ending up in sometimes very unpleasant consequences, which we don't have to actually go into detail. But what I'm trying to say is that even when we combine the two, this would actually help train our minds to understand the virtues and the vices of each of these various components of creativity in writing and in preservation of writing. And as we evolve, we would learn where best to use these fast track methods and where to stop short and go back to slow track. And if you could combine the two, which I'm sure it will happen, but we may not live longer to see that, because these evolutions take several generations, maybe 2 generations later that will happen. It will happen across the world, including in India. And that will also restore to some of the longing minds the pleasure of looking for a reference in a book, spending hours doing that, instead of asking Mr. or Miss Google to give an instant response. And the pleasure of preserving some of the letters which you might have written and which you might feel embarrassed to write now. So I'm sure what Mr. Kaul and his colleagues are doing is a great service. And since government can't be doing everything, I think you are doing what many of us in the ministry should be facilitating, and we owe it as our responsibility to do though. I'm glad this first conference of its kind will help us exchange more of the informal experiences and views that we hold on these issues. Otherwise, formally we end up lighting a traditional lamp, exchanging bouquets, spending 2 days with a sumptuous lunch and a equally sumptuous dinner sometimes, and then wait for the next year to the conference to happen. But I am sure, I am glad, and I can see that you have engaged people who actually have their passion into it, because you have to actually inspire a movement rather than just inspire an event. And this would inspire a movement in this country which has a rich tradition of not only creating good works, but also preserving good works. I remember when I was a medico, a young medico, we would go around purchasing auction-driven books at a smaller price. There was a market called Moore Market in Chennai, which no longer exists because it got gutted in fire about 30 years ago. It used to have books from 19th century, 18th century, and since we didn't have much money to afford, we would go there and have great pleasure in getting some of the old books. Some of the old newspaper copies also would be preserved by them. So I'm sure you would be able to also enthuse some kind of lunatism in the people so that they can carry on the work even when they don't see much of an official or formal incentive in doing what they are doing. And when that happens, I think that would herald the success of this venture that we've started. And before I end, because if I carry on, because I also have to go back, and if I carry on, because I said I've come back to a passionate event, I can carry on for hours together, but before I end, that reminds me of how the passion takes over. When General Ayub Khan put Faiz Ahmed Faiz under arrest during that movement which he had launched against dictatorship in Pakistan, and passed orders that he would not be having access to newspapers, magazines, journals, literature, not even pen and ink, so that he should be there confined because he was allegedly instigating the people. So he spoke from behind the bars and he said, "Mataye loho kalam chin gayi to kya gam hai, कि अब खूने जिगर में डुबो ली हैं उंगलियां मैंने." So he said, even if you take away the ink and the ink pot, it makes no difference, because I've come to a stage where I've already dipped my fingers in blood. So I would, by passion, go on with what I am doing, whether I am inside or outside, confined or unconfined. So unless we achieve, that would be the benchmark of the success of this movement. Thank you once again, ladies and gentlemen.